What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Conversation Piece, the podcast about the missing pieces of the conversations we're already having right here in Indianapolis. I appreciate y'all being here in 2024, the year of the nap. We are coming to a close very, very quickly, and we have some really, really cool stuff coming up. But until then, we have an incredible conversation today. My guest today is an established civic and business leader right here in the city of Indianapolis and has been going above and beyond in both capacities as the president and CEO of IndyHub, the organization working to grow, engage, and empower a community of 20 and 30-somethings who are meaningfully connected to Indianapolis and invested in our city's future. Without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to welcome Al Carroll to the show. Al, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I gave you a little bit of an intro, and I know that you are a pretty prolific Indianapolis podcast guest. But for folks who may not know who you are, do you mind sharing just a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So, I always like to start my story and saying I'm not from Indianapolis. I came here in 2009 to go to school at Butler University, and that was a really interesting time both for the university and the city, I think, right? So, and in that freshman year, I was in the, Butler went to the Final Four.
Yep.
And that was the coolest experience of my life, right? To have my school down the road, playing in the community that I lived in. Just a phenomenal experience. The only thing, I still wish the ball went in, right? Like we still like to, pretend. Yeah. We'll pretend, but we went back to back, right? So that we went back the next year, and then my junior year we hosted the Super Bowl. So it was a really unique time in my life for me to be here in the community and to be from somewhere like Florida. I really had every intention of going back, but my opportunities came here. So from there, I've had opportunities that have come from those relationships, and it's been a real blessing. But I would say that's if you want to know anything about me, it's that I'm a relationship person, and it is the relationships that I have in my life, the relationships that I've been able to cultivate and build that have allowed me to have the career that I've had and the success that I've had. So
100%. Well, I know that idea of being relationship forward has preceded you because that's how we got you here on the show to begin with, was Kelsey Jones. So just knowing people who know people who are like, I think you're aligned and would have a good conversation. The work that you're doing, I think, speaks for itself. I did want to ask you, I was listening to some interviews that you did as I was doing research for this conversation. And one of the things you said that caught your eye about Indy as a Florida kid before you came to Butler was when the Colts hired Tony Dungy, which I thought was really interesting because he had just been in Tampa, had just been knocking on the door of trying to win a championship, and then goes to...
Oh, they did Tony wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
They won a Super Bowl with his team. I apologize. I didn't know we were going to get into sports here, but that was an injustice for young Al, right? So, 12-year-old Al, I was not a Bucs fan after that, and where he went, I followed, right? So I was wearing Peyton Manning jerseys before it was cool, right? Back at home. But I would say that that experience really was the thing that made me look here. I think the other thing, when I was trying to settle down in Indianapolis, I was thinking about this morning. I was trying to decide why I was making this call, but I did some research. I was always a kind of a politically minded kid, and Indiana was so interesting to me in 2009. You're talking about a state where you had a Republican governor, in Indianapolis we had a Republican mayor, but we had Andre Carson, who was the congressman, who was still a congressman, but he was at the time one of two Muslim members of Congress, which was super interesting to me. They had Richard Lugar, who was the Republican senator, and then you had Evan Bayh, who was the Democratic senator. To me, this looked like a bastion for political commentary. Like people were here, it's a middle of the road kind of a place. Like people are here, they're being reasonable, and it was like then I moved here. That was not the case at all. It's like almost immediately. After 2012, Joe Donnelly won, but that was such an interesting thing to me to be from the outside looking in. You think about 2009, Obama won Indiana in 08, right? So to me, as a black kid from Florida who was moving to Indiana without knowing much or really knowing anyone, that was kind of the background that I took, and it's like, oh, this is a reasonable place.
Sure.
I think even then the Republican nominee for United States Senate was a black man who was teaching at my university. So it's like, this is a really open-minded community and an open-minded place is what I thought initially when I moved here. And I'm not to say that is not still the case. Like, right, I've learned a lot more, but I think more broadly, I think that's not the picture of Indiana that people get when they look at from the outside looking in now.
Sure. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because we, in a previous episode with our guest Stretch, he had talked about when he moved here from LA, he ended up in Greenwood and he experienced what he called it experiencing Indiana before he experienced Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And those two things being slightly separate cultures. And like, once he got out of his comfort or maybe even discomfort zone of being in a space that didn't necessarily look like him, he was able to find community within the city, realizing, oh, there are places and pockets here that are not just what you see on TV or see on the news every day.
Yeah, I think, and I think for me, as someone that's coming from Butler, I was probably influenced in a similar but different way. Like I experienced Butler in that bubble way more than I experienced Indianapolis, right? And so my perspective on the city was very much what I think external perspectives on the city would be, is that it's a city that puts on excellent sporting events, like huge sporting events. It takes a lot of people to do, but that is what the perspective of, for someone like me, that was enough to sell me. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was a kid that loved sports, right? So that was like, of course, that meant a lot to me. But I would say that perspective is limiting, right, to what the community actually is. Definitely.
I think it's so interesting too, because like you find yourself in Indy during a shifting political landscape, as well as a like series of massive sporting events that put the city in a different light, or maybe even on the map, so to say. And you have this opportunity to kind of go through changes with the city as it changed.
That's right.
Can you talk about were you aware of like the timing of it all and just seemed like this was right?
Absolutely.
Like it seemed like the fit was right?
Absolutely. I was aware of the timing of it all. And at the time, even like, I only wish I could have bought my house earlier, right? Like I just didn't have any credit. So I had to jump on that before I could get the home. I could see it though.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think for me, it was really clear that there was an economic opportunity that I had living in Indiana in that 2011 to 2015 kind of time frame when I was looking at buying homes. It's like, hey man, like there's something going on here that's not going to be around forever.
Right.
So you got to get on it. And I would say that certainly, I think that was a big part of it. What I tell people all the time is that everything I've ever accomplished in my adult life has come in Indianapolis, Indiana, whether it was graduating from college, starting my family, starting my businesses, like buying my first house, starting my family, right? There's so much opportunity here. And that's the reason why I stayed. I could see that there was opportunity here that was going to be delivering for at least another decade.
For sure.
Further.
Well, and I think you've been capitalizing on those opportunities. So you graduate from Butler, you then end up at TechPoint at a certain point, and you end up leading their unique people experience program. I was wondering if you could talk about that from the perspective of this relationship builder, like this characteristic that you embody. What did you learn from that experience that helped you mold that skill?
Yeah, I think that my time working in tech I'm so grateful for because the spirit and energy of tech entrepreneurs is to build a minimum viable product and get it out in the world and then get people to react to it. And I think that is that as an entrepreneur, as a young entrepreneur, even as a social entrepreneur, that idea of building something that is at a minimum of what you can accept, like, hey, we can get it out in the door, and then having the courage to put something that's like that you're building while you're flying it out in the world. Like there's a lot that I think that it's not a natural thing. I think it feels pretty risky, but I think at the same time, it allows you to, if you are honest with the feedback that you're getting, if you're honest with yourself that like, hey, how people are reacting with it, it's genuinely where I am in the marketplace, I think that you can go faster. Yeah. Right. And one of the things we were talking about before is that it was truly TechPoint that delivered this spirit in me that in Indianapolis, you have to assume yes and go faster. Right. Like the people will say yes to you. Like people want to support people that have good ideas. People want to support people that think big. And this is a community that needs builders, right? Like this is a community that needs people to build the amenities, the things that are going to make this the next great place to be in the Midwest. Yeah. And there's that opportunity is here. And what's unique about Indianapolis, that's the only people who've ever built anything here that have been around for years, right? It's the young people who had this idea, who got together in a room and decided to make it happen. Yeah. And then the leadership that encouraged and took them along the way, right? That story has happened in Indianapolis so many times. Yeah. We have to believe that that's the culture that exists here.
What other programs were you tapping into at the time that were helping you see that? Like TechPoint obviously was helping you do that. You being in Butler, like you said, you were in your bubble, but I'm assuming that Butler you had opportunities to experience other things. Yeah. Like what were some of the other programs that you had an opportunity to be a part of that helped you see and develop that mindset?
I mean, like while I was at
Well, just as you were going along this timeline, so I guess post Butler through TechPoint, like even beyond the unique people experience, like what were some of those other things that you could be a part of or you found yourself being a part of that helped shape and inform that?
Well, I think that some of it was the pandemic is really the thing that really sold me that like, hey, no, there's really good people here who want to make something happen. Sure. We were in a situation in the pandemic at TechPoint where we had an intern. We ran an internship program. It's called Extern, and we had about 100. I think we had 150 interns like signed up on like as of that March, right? And within a week, we had 50 internships left. So we had like over 100 students that were just out of an experience. And Michael Angelier, shout out Michael Angelier when we were trying to think about what it was that we could do to serve those students. He's like, if you're gonna build something for 50 kids, you might as well think about how you could build something for 500 kids. And it blew my mind because at the time I'm like, dude, those numbers don't scale like that. But when it actually like that's what are you talking about? Like that doesn't make any sense. But when it actually came down to it, and we built a program about how we would save the summer experience for 500 students in colleges, not only in Indiana, but around, in Indiana primarily, but like really the students that were in our programs. How could we salvage an experience for them? Like, what would that look like? Yeah. And everyone came together. Like we called 1150 Academy, and we called folks at IUPUI, folks that are genuinely competitors.
Sure.
And what they're trying to deliver into the ecosystem. And we got folks that were willing to work together to put a program together that would help students have an entrepreneurial experience through that summer. Yeah. And we called 280 professional tech workers who served as mentors during that experience, right? We called another 13 people to build challenges. And then we called the governor of Indiana to consolidate and be the announcer of who won that challenge, right? Yeah. So there were so many people who were willing to give time and effort and energy towards delivering an experience for those students that really made me think, it really is just a limit of how big we can think here in this community. And if we can communicate those things that we're trying to do effectively, I think that there are folks here in our community who will be willing to support it.
Well, was that surprising to you to see everybody come together like that?
What was most surprising to me was that we had that many kids who were willing to do it, to tell you the truth. When Mike asked me to put it together and to work with folks to lead that team, he asked me how many students do you think you can go out to universities and recruit? And I told him I thought I could get 500 kids in the 2 weeks that we had to do the recruitment. And we got 900 kids, right? Dang. So it was like, if you build it, just like, if they build it, they will come, right? Like it's a bit of a cliche, but in a lot of ways I was consistently shocked by how we were able to deliver during that time. But it really was an exercise in how big can you think, and how, and if you are willing to put in the systems in place and do the work to help make sure that everybody understands, I think that we got a lot of people involved.
Yeah. Was there something specific about the communication of that message as you were trying to get people that you feel like click with them, or was it simply the fact that you put the system together?
I honestly think it was the fact that we knew we didn't have a lot of time to think about and talk about it, right? It was a lot. It was like, hey, we're flying in 4 weeks.
It's like if people weren't on board with the sense of urgency, it's like, okay, we don't need to be with you then.
But also there's a tremendous amount of trust and grace that has to go into being able to build something like that, of that size, of that magnitude, with 700 people flying as you go while you're trying to build it, right? And so I think that what it showed me is that in a sense of urgency, in a time, like there were so many people, like, we're at home. Yeah. What we provided was an opportunity for someone to give back when they're sitting in that, like, otherwise they're sitting in their house wondering what they could do. Right. And I think that we were able to capitalize on that time when folks wanted to give back and had time, effort, and energy to be able to do so.
I think the other thing that's really incredible was, like you said, filling all those seats, like, with students who were, I'm assuming, excited about being there because they were part of the program. You said that was obviously surprising. Was that the thing that kind of like, did that help you shift your mindset on how you looked at the youth in Indy and wanting to make sure, okay, we're closing opportunity gaps for them? I think that before your IndyHub work, I guess is what I'm trying to say, like thinking about this perspective of building up youth talent.
Yeah, I would say that the TechPoint job was certainly an Indiana perspective, right? Like I think that we're thinking much very broadly about what the tech opportunities are across the state. But what it showed me about Indianapolis, I think, is that what it showed students about Indianapolis is that there are people here who are willing to invest in your career. Yeah. Even in a time of crisis and their jobs and their lives. So there were people who were like, no, I will take an hour a week and sit down with you as a student and make sure that you have a quality experience, that you're getting this entrepreneurial experience, and one that you're getting an opportunity outside of class to demonstrate your skills and abilities. That program was named the top workforce and talent development program in North America. Not just the country, but like Canada and Mexico included in the technology councils of North America. It was a very unique and very unique program. Just kudos to all the team. My boss Marilyn, my teammate Kat, all those folks that worked on that program. I think Lauren Peterson James as well was instrumental in helping us to get the relationships around the community to invest back into that program. So again, you don't do any of this stuff alone,
right?
And especially not in Indianapolis, you don't do anything alone. But I think it is hopefully and I've lost the train on the question exactly, but I think hopefully what everybody learned and what the students learned is that Indianapolis was a community that was willing to invest in their future.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible message, because I feel like it's something that I hear from, like, my wife is a middle school teacher, and so she routinely champions the youth that come through her classroom and stuff. But when I look at like social media sometimes, when I have other conversations, people are like, the youth are struggling. Like, there's a big thing. They don't want to have that investment. But I think the problem is like even if we are investing, there's like the visibility for them, like to the awareness that this is even available, the opportunity is even available to them, is just non-existent, or it's so far in the periphery, like they don't have the opportunity to turn.
I think visibility and awareness is the thing that I had to deal with the most in that role at TechPoint, and trying to sell Indiana and the Indiana tech community and the ecosystem in general broadly. It's not that people have a negative opinion of Indiana. It's that there's no opinion. Like, they don't know about what's going on at all. And that's externally. But when you think about students, I would go, whether it was Elkhart to Evansville or Notre Dame or Purdue, every college, every university I ever went to, and speaking to students, I asked the same two questions. I still ask those two questions when I'm on campus. How many of you are from Indiana? Everybody raises their hand. They're all proud. How many of you intend to live and work in Indiana when you graduate? And everybody's hands go down. Now, that is a critical issue.
Yes.
That is a big problem. And part of that issue is because their peers have that spirit of energy, like, hey, we got to go and we got to get elsewhere. Yeah. Right? It's the Jim Gaffigan joke, like, we're from Indiana and we're moving, right? Like, that's funny, because that is, there's a real spirit and energy about that here. But as someone from the outside looking in, I don't think that people really understand the opportunity that exists here. Right. And I think that there are so many of us that are expats, or, that are no, we're gonna have to edit this part out, because I know that there's a term that we use for people who are transplants. Transplants to Indiana. I think that a lot of us get it. A lot of us see it, and that's why there's so many of us that move from places like Florida or California or Texas, and we get here and we're like, wait a minute, wait, what's going on here? And we can see it, and there is unfortunately kind of a glaze for folks that are here, who I understand. Like, y'all grew up here. I'm from Florida. I'm from literal paradise, and I didn't want to be there either. So I got to go in my blood too. So I get it, but I think that there's just something about being from Indiana where people are super proud to be from here, but they don't often see the opportunity that exists here.
Yeah, I think so. I've looked at this situation from, like, particularly from a racial ethnic lens of being Asian American. So I was adopted. I grew up in Rensselaer, Indiana, so small, like all white town, an all white family, where access to community, culture, language, food, anything was non-existent in the 90s. There was none of that. And my parents weren't going to uproot themselves to move and go find that, because that's not their culture of origin. So and if I don't look like I really care, like, what was the point for them to do that? And what I've come to find as I've been in Indianapolis now is not only is there an Asian American community here, there's a fairly large and diverse Asian community here. Mm-hmm. What the issue is the cross communication that happens between our different ethnicities, the different breakdown between. And when we put all of our time, energy, and effort into a single day every year to come together and celebrate and talk to each other, we miss kind of the forest for the trees when it comes to our whole community. When bad things happen, when good things happen, when we have stuff going on throughout the year, you find that we're not really showing up for each other in that way. And it's not necessarily because we don't want to, but it's because we don't know.
Oh, come on, Patrick.
Yeah, it's just because we don't know. It's just we're not advertising to each other. We're not advertising to anybody else. And yet we ask each other, why aren't we more supported? Why aren't people willing to invest in us and what we're doing here.
Well, I think what I would say to that is that just because there's a lot of opportunity here doesn't mean we know each other.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that that's also a challenge in Indianapolis. I'm in an interracial marriage, and I have to be careful about how I say it because I'm not bragging. It's just how it happened. Right.
Sure.
But it's I because of this, I often find that we either one of us or the other is in spaces that are where we are the only one there.
Yes.
And that is I don't know that everybody always sees it. I don't know that it's always an issue, but it's certainly something that I often have my eyes on because I'm often in spaces where I'm either the only one or my spouse is the only one. Right.
Yeah.
So it is I think from a community standpoint, I hope that people aren't hearing me say that all of these things and that like I'm speaking quite positively about Indiana in general writ large, but there are certainly limiting perspectives and
Sure.
limitations. I think that are slowing us down.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it is just that we don't know each other.
Right.
So hopefully I think that part of what we are doing at IndyHub is giving more opportunities for people to convene and to learn those things that you're talking about, because it's not just a black-white thing. It's an Asian American Alliance thing. It's an international thing, right? Like there are so many organizations that are trying to bridge the gap and bring people together. And a lot of what my role is to try to amplify that word.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think when we talk about resource and we talk about equality, we think about it's like equality for who, not necessarily equality for all. And even when we think about that, it's not even equity at that point. It's more equality, and it's like we're trying to define between the two. But how does IndyHub help to further that visibility for folks to know about these opportunities?
Yeah, for me, it is it is a fact that we live in a diverse community.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is just a fact. So when I think about diversity, it is a fact. But it is a choice to be inclusive of all of the people who are in that community. And I think that is what we are trying to do at IndyHub, is to try to make an effort to do what we can to bring everybody into the room. Now, we recognize that everybody isn't always going to feel comfortable in every single space, but it is the making the effort to try to make people feel included, I think, is what I'm most trying to do.
Yeah.
So when I think that equity is a hard thing for someone in our position to do. But when I think about our work in the space, it is about acknowledging that we live in a diverse community and then making every effort that we can to make sure that we're doing our part to put our opportunities in channels that people wouldn't normally see it.
Yeah.
So if you are someone that is paying attention to the exchange at the Indianapolis Urban League as a primary channel for your external professional engagement, we have it takes our work to be able. It takes us we have to put the onus on ourselves to make sure that our work is in that exchange channel.
Right.
We have to put the effort on ourselves to make sure that we're in the Indie networking channel, and their audience is primarily Latino. Right. Like we have to find out where people are and do the work to meet them. And I think there's a lot of people that say like we're going to meet people where they are, but I think when it comes down to actually doing that, that's inclusive work that requires relationships. It requires some tact, and it requires some acknowledgement that maybe that work hasn't been done in the past, but hey, we're doing it now.
What's the biggest misconception that you run into that you have to dispel for like incoming leaders about relationship building? I think that people, when they think about relationship building, I think it's been tainted by transactionalness of like just you have like the quid pro quo, the favor for a favor type of situation. I wonder how, especially like the work that y'all do, is that something that you even have to address? Like you need to make sure that you're aware and mindful of this. Yeah,
the advice I always give to people is that a handshake does not a relationship make, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Jim Schwabe over at the Pacers, the associate counsel over there. I heard him say this on a panel for us on Friday, but it's not who you know, it's who you get to know, right? Like, so you're not just collecting names, right? You're not just collecting business cards in a Rolodex. It really takes genuine relationships. It takes people getting to know you, and people getting to know your work. So these things take time, right? When we talk about trust, it takes familiarity and comfort to get to trust. Yeah. It's an equation, and there's no skipping it, right? Like, so you have to get more familiar with people, and then you had to find opportunities to build more comfort with those people so that you can have more trusting relationships. But you can't really skip it. So to me, it takes time. Like this opportunity came together pretty quickly, but it was the result in 10 years worth of work and building relationships. Right. So it's that kind of thing that I think it's what I would give for folks that are coming in. It's the follow up. It's the breakfast. It's the understanding where your family went on vacation and just catching up for a couple minutes, but also remembering that, right? So there are some like key things, but you also, I think for me, it has come down to interest, right? I'm just interested in people. I like people. So that kind of translates into curiosity.
Is that the foundational piece for building consensus? I've heard you talk about like building consensus being a super important thing instead of just building the solution. It's like building something that people like, where everybody's like, okay, we're on board.
Yeah,
not necessarily everybody agree.
I don't know that everybody always does get on board, right?
Sure,
I think that the consensus
sure.
of it is just being able to listen to people. And I think that relationships will, again, what I'm talking about is the comfort for people to be able to be honest about the things that they're trying to feel in a relationship, right? If I sit down with someone and I'm pushing like, hey, we need to collaborate, we need to do this, we need to do that. And they're like, hey, actually, I don't know. Right. Like you have to be able to have the relationship where someone can sit down with you and be able to say, hey, honestly, I don't think this is going to work. And we've had those conversations in my time at IndyHub. Like we've had great collaborations that we built that were like, hey, let's try it. And then something else happens and we had to reprioritize. Right. But again, I think that where my strength comes in, it's like the folks are very comfortable being able to come to me and have that conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that's what that takes. I mean, I think from a consensus building standpoint, you just have to be able to listen and understand what's valuable for people, right? Like you're a salesman, right? Like I did too, right? So you've been in sales, and a lot of what you do right now, I think, is sales in a way. And I think sales is so much about understanding what the value is for someone. Like what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and what is that problem? What is solving that problem worth to you? Yeah. Not necessarily in a dollars and cents standpoint, but psychologically, what is it worth to you, right? Like what is it worth to you to solve this problem? And what are we all willing to give or gain to make sure that we can solve the issue at hand? Yeah. So for me with consensus, I've always been a real problem oriented person, and like, do we want to solve the problem or not? Yeah. And are we comfortable that if our actions aren't the things that's necessary to solve the problem, that the problem might not get solved? Sure. And if we're all comfortable with that, then maybe then we don't need to do it. But I think if we all understand what the problem is and we understand what activity we can take to move the needle on it, I think that I've seen that people are pretty on board with getting together and getting it done. For sure. I can listen to you speak about many topics all day, because I think you have like an authoritative voice when you speak, because you speak like, not like a, hey, but like I'm knowledgeable and experienced in what I'm speaking about, and I'm speaking from that experience. I also heard you talk about, the reason I asked about building consensus, I heard you talk about in the context of leading without authority. So leading, not necessarily having the C-suite label, but being able to get something done from wherever you might find yourself within that position. It's the only reason I'm in the seat I'm in now. It's because of a capacity to be able to lead without authority. I didn't mind what my title was. I was going to be a leader in whatever room I'm in. I'm going to be, this is who you get, right? Like this is how I show up. And I'd like to think it's how I'd be showing up if my title was associate, not CEO, right? Like that's who I am. And I think that for me, it's if you show up and don't care what people call you, like then I've been able to be more effective in getting things done. But that is my parents put a lot of effort into instilling self-confidence in me as a young black man, right? Like I think that I give them eternal credit for me having positive self-esteem. I think one of the reasons why I speak authoritatively is I don't mind being wrong. Sure. I really don't. I want to learn. I want to get better. I'm 33, right? Like I'm going to be wrong on some stuff, right? But I'm also going to I'm going to learn a lot along the way. I'm going to be better. Yeah. And I think that one of the reasons why I can also work with people is because like they can also tell me when they think I'm wrong. Yeah. And I'm open-minded to that. Yeah. And I think that there are examples of when I've changed course because someone that's shared that I might not be right. Sure. Right. So I am not in this seat because I always have the right answer. I appreciate you saying that I'm an authority on things, but it's like I don't try to position myself as that at all. Right. I try to position myself as someone that's doing their best to get the best answers out of everybody and trying to facilitate an environment that makes everybody comfortable to say what needs to be said. Right. Right. And when we are in those environments, when we are feeling really comfortable, that's when teams fly. Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to facilitate with my team. Like tell me what's on your mind. Tell me whatever it is that we can deal with it, but we have to be moving. Yeah. I love it because it's like early on in the show, I had a guest on, we talked about the concepts of safety and bravery and moving from safe spaces into brave spaces and delineating between the two, because the safe space is where you learn, you develop understanding, and a brave space is where you actually put all of that learning and understanding into action when you feel like, okay, I can step into this. Yeah. Shout out to your parents for giving you that foundation. Big time. And then shout out to you for carrying that through. And especially now in your position at IndyHub, like I think really imparting that. And when I hear you talk about it, I think about this willingness to be accountable and to be held accountable, which I think is something I've been talking about a lot, but like something that we
lack a lot of, not only as individuals, but I think as collective groups. And I'm wondering, how do you share this like learned skill of accountability with these young leaders who are moving forward? So I think that's a skill that can carry you really, really far. Like you said, a willingness to be like, oh, I am wrong, and that's fine. So that helps with collaboration. But how do you help folks see like this is something that can really help you build not just your career but those relationships?
Yeah, I think there's a certain level of self-awareness that has to go on, and understanding that like you have to get better, right? Even to the extent of however much you've accomplished in your career, there's always some way that you can get better and improve.
Yeah.
What a good question, man. I think that from an accountability standpoint, one of the things that I also have to take into I have made a point in my career of leaving no doubt, right? That was kind of how my dad has always raised me. It's like, just if there's results, then you don't have to talk about it, right? You have to, just leave no doubt, make sure that nobody is confused about where it is or where you stand, right?
Yeah.
We got here because we earned it. And I think that as I've grown in my career and continued to get into spaces where like, hey, there might be a gap in what I actually know and what it takes to do this job. And there is a level of, there's a couple different acronyms that I've heard for fear, right?
Okay.
I think some of it for me has been fear, but it's an acronym that I had to acknowledge that some of my challenge in wanting feedback early on in my career was a fear about what it was that I needed to know.
Sure.
Right? So fear for me is a couple things. Fear is false expectations appearing real.
I like that one.
Right?
Yep.
False expectations appearing real. Like there's some level of this that you believe that's going to happen that isn't actually based in reality. It's just something that you're scared of, right? Yep. So I try to be just as delusional about what I think is going to succeed, right? Because if like we're whether you're fearing it or you're thinking it's going to be a wild success, you're guessing on both, right? Yeah. So why not believe that it's better? The other two acronyms are, you can either forget everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. So when it comes down to fear, it's like, hey, when it comes down to accountability, I have to, if I really want to get better, I have to face everything. If I have to face it, or in order to rise, but that's my ascension is on the other side of the thing that I fear the most. And sometimes that's accountability. I'm a guy with ego, right? Like we all are. Yeah. So to be able to acknowledge a failure, and then to take whatever comes with that, right? Like, cause sometimes people are mad at you. Sometimes people are angry. Sometimes there are missed expectations. But what I think comes of that is an opportunity for people to communicate expectations. I think it's an opportunity for you to learn and grow. And it is a reminder that failure isn't fatal, right? Like it is a moment. And as long as you don't give up, there's no, like you can't fail. You can't truly fail, but you're not going to make me quit.
Failure isn't fatal. I love that one.
It's not fatal at all.
Great acronyms for fear. And then also I like that. That's a good one because I think, when we've hit a wall, it's easy to stop. It's easy to quit, but it's a whole other thing to be like, okay, how can I get over the wall? How can I get around the wall? How can we keep moving forward? So I appreciate you sharing that. I want to move to a little bit more IndyHub centric stuff in terms of relevant to the times. You're positioning 20 and 30 something young leaders in the city in all different kinds of spaces. And we have been having events galore. It might be reminiscent of when you first arrived in Indianapolis.
Right. A lot of stuff going on.
NBA All-Star Game. We had the U.S. Olympic swim trials. We had other massive things that are happening. I'm forgetting right now. The Fever just reached the playoffs, but we have the WNBA All-Star Game coming up.
Big Ten Championship will be here in December.
Big Ten Championships. Winter Classic. Lots of really cool things happening. The WWE, AEW, all of those wrestling things.
We got the Royal Rumble in February, right? That's big.
Lots of incredible events happening, and a lot of work done behind the scenes to make those things happen. Yeah. How's IndyHub involved in helping put all this together?
Yeah, so we're a supporting organization of a lot of those community organizations that put on some of these big events. Think Visit Indy, think Downtown Indy, think Sports Corp, think the Arts Council, right? So we are in the mix for a lot of these things. I think the way that we are most a part of this is that, we are, the Sports Corp is a key partner of ours, and has been for a while. We have a couple folks from the Sports Corp that are on our board. So when they come to look for folks to serve on local organizing committees, like the Olympic swim trials or like the NBA NBA All-Star Game, they certainly look to us to find some of those folks. So if that's something that you're interested in, certainly reach out to us because we certainly do submit names when they're looking for people.
For sure.
But yeah, I think that from an IndyHub standpoint, like I think we put on events. I think in my seat, as the new guy, one of the things that people told me a lot was that there's a lot going on in the community. We're kind of getting back into this phase of like having 2 or 3 events a night or a week to go to. There's multiple things going on. So how can we look to collaborate? And that's really been my focus: is how can we consolidate and collaborate some of these events to make them bigger and more impactful. And maybe sometimes it might be like, how do we make them smaller and more impactful? Right? If that might be the question as well. Can we shrink ourselves to greatness? But I think that for me, it's always been about collaboration first, and then this understanding that IndyHub doesn't have to be the entity that puts on all of these events. We, and God bless my team. We did 75 events last year, right? Which is fantastic. And I think that there's a lot. There's certainly a defense for like why those events were absolutely 100% necessary, right? Like we're trying to make people feel like this is a place that they can call home within 90 days of them getting here, right? So we have to offer broad experiences. But I think that offering broad experiences could mean partnerships that elevate and amplify other experiences that some of our nonprofit partners are already doing. Yeah. Right. And I think that that's where you see our maybe a shift, maybe a refocus here at IndyHub is how can we better amplify some of the big events that some of our other nonprofit partners are doing and how those events can benefit young professionals here as opposed to us putting on everything that you want to go to.
Sure. So let's talk about the big event that I could not think of when I was listing off events, but the biggest event, I guess, that's happened here since the dawn of time, Taylor Swift going back to Indianapolis for the Eras Tour.
Huge.
How does IndyHub, so thinking about that, like kind of that shifted focus, how are you approaching something like that with this mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for Taylor specifically, we've tried to just embrace the Eras idea, right? Like one of the things that we did this year was to offer for all of the interns that came into town. We were at Fast Forward. We had some different places where you could go in Indianapolis while you're in your Indy era, right? Mm-hmm. You're in your Indy intern era. We definitely took advantage of that, and had posters and whatnot that we gave folks, and we gave out some different coupons and experiences for folks to go out to. But for this weekend coming up, like we have key partners at the Indianapolis Indians, right? Indianapolis Indians Charities. Like they're going to be doing a fantastic like kickoff party for this event. So you're seeing us amplify stuff like that, some things that are going on around. Mm-hmm. But as far as like programming specifically, we didn't get into that. Now there are certainly some nonprofit organizations that have used tickets to raise money for their missions and do raffles and things like that. But I think that for me, for Eras, it's been kind of a part of just being in the vibe of the city and letting people see this cool experience that's coming.
But you talk about it being like IndyHub being that supporting organization. When it's not like we're putting on events or have to be like involved.
We're putting on a lot of events, but we don't have to put on all of them.
Sure. But as a supporting org, is it like, okay, we place members here to just help run the show, or how does that collaboration work for you when it's not your event, but you come in as that support system?
Yeah, a lot of it is storytelling. And it is most effective when we can do it on the front end, but a lot of it is like how can we come in and attend and then be a part of the content delivery of what that experience was like. So I really think that's where we can be most effective is where it's like, hey, how can we amplify the event on the front end to our network? Like we have 17,000 followers on our email list, right? And we have depending on what social media it is, 5-digit followers across all of those platforms. So how can we use those audiences to amplify the content that some of these folks are putting out into the world? But the other side of it is like, what does it look like for younger professionals to actually attend some of these events? So I think that you see some of that content as well.
Yeah. And I'm also curious about like coming out of an event like this. Is there like, we're going to go, we're going to attend, we're going to capture, we're going to also host our events, and then we have kind of like a stated goal that we want to see that we can develop out of this?
I would say that like for Taylor, I wouldn't say that that's the case, but like for the All-Star game, absolutely, right? Like it was very much a Taylor strategy of saying like, hey, okay, we want to make sure that young professionals not only see that this event is happening here, what does it look like for young professionals to experience? So you're going to see, if you go back to our social media from that time, you see us at the pre-event with T-Pain. You see us at the concert with MGK. Like you see us experiencing all these things that are going on around the event. Now you're not going to see us with content of at the actual game, watching LeBron on the court. But like, there's a lot of other things that we can show that are going on that we can do. And I say that with our sports teams, that's our perspective, right? Yeah. Like part of our partnership with the Colts is showing like, what does it look like for the Colts young professional experience before the game? Yeah. Right. Like, what does it look like for us to actually be in those environments and build content as like the perspective that's there? Yeah. So it's not turning the camera on to me, but actually showing like, hey, here's what it looks like to go work in these coffee shops during the day. Yeah. Here's what it looks like to be a part of the the women's summit, right? Like there are so many things that we get invited to that are like, hey, how do we build better content about what this looks like? So more people, if you search it on TikTok, you can see what it looks like before you go and be a part of it. In your I don't know if 2.5 years is a short tenure, but I mean, you haven't had like a decade to work at it, but you've been able to come in, shift a little bit of the focus, and also be a part of a lot of these events that are coming up. Have you seen? Has there been like a shift in? How do I want to ask this question? Have you seen like? Have you had to change the message, any messaging at all, and how you narrate or tell that story of the young professional over just that short time? Has that changed even, especially because you're coming out of the pandemic too? Well, I appreciate that. I think that I think you can look at me and understand I'm a different person than my predecessor. So I try not to be so on the nose. But I do think that I would describe myself as a maximizer, right? I have benefited from this fantastic organization that they've built over nearly 20 years, right? Next year's our 20th anniversary. And for me, what I'm trying to do is to take all these fantastic resources that they've cultivated and consolidated over the course of that time and maximize them for everyone. So when I was doing my initial research and even early on into being in the role, people called us a young professional organization. And one of the things I immediately challenged was it's a young people organization, right? Like our mission is 20 and 30 somethings. Yeah. It's not 20 and 30 somethings who dress up in slacks and a button down every day and go into offices. It's 20 and 30 somethings who are in Marion County. So whether or not they are, whether they're pipe fitters and unions, whether they are the local garbage men, like if folks in their 20s and 30s should be important to us writ large. Yeah. And that is, I would say that like broadening the scope in that way is hard, but it helps us to understand that we can do some different events to bring people together that aren't always like stuffy professional panels, right? Like I would think that we do, our panels aren't stuffy, but like I would say that we definitely do a lot of like convening people to talk about stuff, right? But like, what does it look like for us to do a concert? Like, what does it look like for us to partner with Pattern on a concert? What does it look like for us to convene around artists, right? Like, how do we bring people together? We do a fantastic collaboration with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra for their Uncharted series. Oh, yeah. Where we partner with Forte and, people in Forte, we do an after party for each one of those, for a couple of those Uncharted programs throughout the year. And those events sell out all the time. Yeah. We have a toast with the conductor. I mean, it's a fantastic event. Yeah. But it's like Forte was already doing that, right? That's something we tagged on to, right? So it's a way for us to amplify a greater mission. But like, how cool is that for people to get together and convene around classical music? Yeah. Right, as a young professional opportunity. So I think that we're still trying to find those ways to convene. But for me, that you don't have to. You can come to something like that regardless of who you are. Right. And we're trying to find more opportunities to help people connect to those kind of things. Where it doesn't. Where when you come to an IndyHub event, it's a little less comfortable. The first question you get to be, what do you do for a living? You know, hopefully it's like, why'd you come to this event? I love it's the subtle language shift from professionals to people, but it's like an ideological shift. That's the difficult change. But the language shift is easy, which can then chip away at the ideology change of it all. And when you were talking earlier about your experience with TechPoint having to go to different parts of the state to talk about this to students, it made me think of previous guest Nietzsche Stapanukel, who works with the symphony orchestra, and her role as community engagement, thinking about how do we get kids who traditionally do not look like the audience or even the participants within classical music involved and interested and engaged in this thing. And that's kind of what I thought about, is just like in the work that you're doing is just how can we move outside the box? Just shifting from professional to people opens up doors and windows that we didn't even know were closed. That's right. And it allows you, again, to like, how can we do a concert? How can we do a book series that's outside of the math books or whatever, whatever like books that we might be reading for something at a professional organization, just something that's different. But again, it moves beyond just one group of 20 and 30 somethings to all of them. what I also want to acknowledge is that it's accountability and as well, right?
Yep.
Because it's saying that, hey, if we measure the people who are in the room, and we also take a look at what the entire population is that aren't in the room, are we really are we meeting our mission, right?
Mhm.
Like it is an accountability measure to say, are we actually focused on what we say we're focused on, right? So I think that there again, part of the way that I've been able to be effective over my time is through that leading without authority.
Yeah.
I think leading without authority is saying, one, we're going to be we're going to acknowledge that this is a diverse community and we're going to be inclusive,
Yeah.
right, in our work. And two, that this is an environment that requires us to acknowledge that not everyone is here, right? So the people that are in the room that are in our mission, we're responsible for them too. So while there are people that are here that are really happy and love everything that we're doing, if we're truly being mission based, there's more opportunity on the field.
Yeah. How do you go? I mean, how do you go about addressing the people who aren't in the room? Is it simply, obviously you can't get to everybody, but it's just keeping them in front of mind, like who is not here.
Right. I think that the biggest acknowledgement is like saying is I'm trying to get a better understanding of where they are and building relationships where folks are showing up. So one of the things I love to do is to go to different events. I get invited to stuff all the time.
Mhm.
If I walk into a young professional event, there's 300 people there. It's like and they're all under 40. It's like, well, wait a minute, like what's going on here,
Yeah.
right? I want to be on your newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Like how can I get you? How can I be a part of this? How can I add value? And that's always what I'm trying to do. It's like how can we add value? And I offer value first.
Yeah.
Right. I recognize that the work that they're doing is valuable. So I want to be there to be a resource. But I think that the best example I can give is like indie networking. Oh man, we're gonna have to edit this part too, because I don't remember her name. But the best example I can give is the work that we're recently doing with indie networking and indie networking is a group that is convening young Latino professionals in this community, and in small part because they felt like they weren't being intentionally convened anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, it has been a part of like, hey, I don't want to. I can't fly in and be prescriptive, right? I want to come in and acknowledge the work that they've done to build the community that they've built. But it's a part of making sure that like, hey, how do I get into normal communication with this audience? How do I make sure that I can offer something that is of value to you? And through that, that's how we build relationships, right?
Yeah.
It's the same way that of how we've built relationships with Kelsey with Silent Book Club. Obviously, Kelsey's been a long-time IndyHub contributor, but when she started building the Silent Book Club thing, it's like, hey, how can we be of help to that effort, and then from there you build the collaboration, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, it's just about it's always about value.
Yeah. I love that. And it just made me think about, so one of the reasons I'm doing the show the way that we're doing it now was Butter 2022. It was the first time I came to Butter Art Fair, and I stumbled into a panel really early in the first day, and Mariah Ivy, local poet here, was speaking about new organizations that were cropping up across the city, and she goes, these organizations keep making new programs, and then when they don't work for people, they ask, why is this not working? And what the problem is that these organizations aren't going into the community and asking, how can we support you? What do you need? And everything I feel like you just said is like, we go to the community and ask, how can we support you? What do you need? And let us prop you up in that way.
I appreciate you consolidated that. That's what I don't think I use those exact words, but that's ultimately what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to ask the people what it is that would be of value to them. What are the problems?
Exactly.
Again, what are the problems that you're trying to solve? What are the issues that you have?
Yeah.
And I think that for me, people have been upright and forthcoming and sharing that, right? And then I've tried to be able to speak to it and how we can help. But I do think that the question, and that's also the question with IndyHub, right? Like I think that for entrepreneurs across the board, whether you're a social entrepreneur or you're doing something that's for profit, you have to be obsessed with your customer, right? You have to be customer obsessed. You have to understand what it is that the customer wants from you. So part of the things that we talk about in IndyHub values is that we're doing things that are aligned with the stated needs of our community, right? And again, if you broaden the scope of who you think's in your community, you have to ask more people more questions about what they need.
You got to ask more people more questions. We got to ask them better questions as well. We got to ask those better questions. Al, I appreciate everything that you shared with us so far. I want to ask, as we get ready to kind of wind down here, what is going on with IndyHub for 2025? How do you come out of 2024 with all the things, especially coming out of like a big event that you can support, like Taylor Swift, plus Big Ten Championship, like lots of stuff happening at the end of the year. What's the goal for 2025 as you move forward?
Yeah, we're greater sustainability for our organization is the ultimate goal for 2025. Yeah. But 2025 is IndyHub's 20th anniversary year. We've been doing this work in community to connect young people to more meaningful opportunities in Indianapolis since 2005. So there's a really unique opportunity for us to take advantage of in this 20th anniversary year. I'm having a generation of impact here in Indianapolis, right? There are folks who were here at the beginning who were young professionals who are building stuff, who are in leadership roles right now, who are doing some significant things across the community that we want to make sure to highlight. I think the other thing is, and probably the thing that's most important to me, Patrick, is that like 2025 is a non-election year. So there's nobody on the ballot in 2025. And in IndyHub, we have a strict policy that we don't talk to candidates. We only talk to elected officials about things that are happening in our community. So in 2025, every elected official in Marion County is eligible. So we're going to have some conversations about what it looks like for young people to engage with their community in a time outside of an election. That I think is just so critical for us to talk about, right? Like we are inherently people that are going to be here for a long time. Yeah. And you can make decisions about whether or not you want to grow your professional career in Indianapolis, but inherently, I'm going to be here for the next 20 or 30 years. I'm going to operate as such. But I think that there are conversations that young people have to be a part of. Yeah, have to be a part of that are critical for us to impact our future. And I think that a non-election year is a great time to start learning about how we can be better part of that engagement.
Well, especially on the civic side, I've been having a lot of like, how do we get young people engaged civically? Well, because we're in the election years coming up, obviously in the next week or so. But it's like, how do we go about doing that? And again, it's organizations like IndyHub that are willing and already having things done in place to do that. Do you work to scale some of that civic engagement outside of IndyHub with other people, like other organizations that do civic work?
Absolutely. I mean, we're certainly trying to have conversations right now with institutional investors that would be willing to fund that type of work. But I think that from a civic engagement standpoint, this is something this is where IndyHub sits as a convener of young people in our community. And the reason, again, this is a stated need of our community. I'm not doing this because I love that we're going this way, but I'm doing this because young people have said in Indianapolis that there are issues to them that are important that need more investment. Some of those are, homelessness. Some of that is food security. Some of that is transportation. Those are critical. Those are issues that elected officials are here to solve. And in Indianapolis, you were not that far away from any of those elected officials. So we're going to give those folks a place to be heard, and hopefully we're going to give young people a place to be able to elevate their concerns in a manner and way that they can see something be done about the things that are most important to them. But I think that I think that we need to rid ourselves of the delusion that young people don't care about their communities because they don't vote, and they're not voting in those strong numbers, right? Oh, not right now. I'm crushing it.
I think you'll be all right. He got it out. We had this before. He got it out great.
Right on. It's like that's part of it. But I think that there is an element of responsibility that I think that we have as a young people organization to also facilitate the process of trying. Like, how do you go about having that impact that we say that you could have? Let's learn about it next year, because there's one thing I know for sure is that there's more elections coming. Right. Like I think that there's so much activity that goes on 60 days out to try to get people out and involved and get out to vote. But the reason why they're not voting in general is because they're not seeing their problems solved in a way. They're not seeing the things that are most important to them solved in the electoral process. Right. So if the best way I think to go about communicating how that could happen is by starting a little earlier.
For sure. I love it, because I've been talking about this too. Like, it took me a long time to realize is that we get and the media, I think, contributes to this, is like we get so focused on our national elections, what's happening in DC, who we send to DC, which I've realized is like, okay, that's affecting my 10-year plan. But the people who we elect and send to the state house over here on Meridian are the people who affect my tomorrow. Or my yesterday, and not only that, my kids tomorrow.
I think that's the most important part for me.
Exactly. And it's like, when I've had that understanding, I was like, oh, okay, I think I've been yelling into the void for no reason. I've been contributing to this echo chamber of like, oh, we need to have so-and-so as the president. It's like, well, wait a second. They're not affecting me in any meaningful way. But like a person like Senator Hunley, I live in literally her neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Like, that is somebody who is like showing up in the community center and asking like, what's going on here? Like,
she was on our show as well. And on that show, she communicated, I have more impact on this community than Joe Biden does. And I think that more of us need to understand that, and understand that she's a phone call away, right? Like you can email Andrea and she will answer. And there's a lot of people like that in this community who are an email away. And there's a lot of people who are shouting into the void and who are really angry when a effectively written email to the right person might actually see something moved. Yeah. And that's what we're here to solve, right? Who do you email? How do you use the Mayor's Action Center to get what you need to get done? How can you be a part of what INHP is doing to address housing insecurity, right? Like there are so many people that are doing great things in our community. Like how do we allow for more opportunities to elevate that work? But like, how do we also not shrink away from like this? There is a political aspect to this, right? Like this is engagement with people who are elected. So there's a way to go about doing that, and we're excited about trying to do more to educate people on how to go how to engage.
I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all this because I'm not gonna lie, I know a little about IndyHub before coming in here, and I had done a little bit of research. But even in the research, I still felt like I was like, and this is my own bias, I think, reading professional into it and like learning about the shift from professional to people, but also like the civic piece. Like IndyHub is providing resource and connection to so much more than just a job or how to fill your resume out.
Well, so much of what we do to grow in our life comes outside of work, right? Like work is how we fund our lives, but there's a community that we live in that we have to invest in. That requires a civic investment, right? Of time, effort, or in energy, right? So it is IndyHub is a place for people that want to do that work and find the places that align with their skills and interests. And it's such a critical and valuable resource here.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about not doing things alone. You've not been able to do a lot of this alone. Doing stuff in teams, but also community and relationship building. We have a recurring segment on the show called Give Them Their Flowers, where we ask our guests to give flowers to whoever they feel like deserves the flowers at this time. So Al, just want to ask you, is there anybody or any entity that you'd like to give their flowers to today?
I appreciate this aspect of the show, and I've seen it, and I thought a lot about who I want to give those flowers to. And I'm going to go outside of our community. But I really think it's appropriate at this point for me to give my flowers to my former SGA advisor from high school, Miss Shivel, who has created an epic ripple effect in her work through her work with me, even back at Astronaut High School in Titusville, Florida. In 2005 to 2009. Miss Shivel was the person that said, I was elected student body president when I was like my junior year, and I was complaining about something, and she was like, we're not doing this complaining thing. Like you've had too much going for you right now to ever be a complainer. Like you need to do something about the stuff that you care about. So the example I'll give you, Anthony, and this is a longer story from Miss Shivel. Shout out to Miss Shivel. Shiv retired this year. It didn't tell anybody. She kind of was like, I'm going to step out, and did it real quietly, but didn't give us an opportunity to really
The best teachers always just leave, never say anything.
She's like, oh, that's good. But she's just such a meaningful impact on my life. I'll tell you a real quick story. When I was in my senior year of high school, I was planning this conference for the district. I was southeastern Florida. So I had students coming to this conference at the Kennedy Space Center from Palm Beach County, from Martin County, from 2 hours away. These kids are coming, and the kids that were in my county from down the road, I called all the high schools and whatnot. And it was $200 to send 10 kids to this conference, and most of the high schools in my area, we were running it 10 minutes down the road from that. They all told me that they couldn't do it, that they couldn't afford it. And that really upset me. And I was complaining about it to Miss Shivel, and she's like, you should do something. Like, don't just sit here and complain, make an effort. And she's like, write a letter to the superintendent if you feel so strongly. And I did. And I wrote him a letter saying, like, I just, based on, like, I looked at their budgets, and I was like, based on our spending for students that are underperforming, I would think that we would make this investment for kids who are leaders in their schools, right? And I gave them all the dollar amount. I wrote them a letter. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in class and, to get up, hey, the superintendent's on the phone for Al. And I got called out of class to go talk to him, and he's like, hey, look, I'm going to write you your check for every high school in the county. I'm going to write the check, and you tell me who doesn't go. You tell me who doesn't show up. And that was such a meaningful experience for me. It really changed my perspective on, like, hey, people, there are people who are out there who are listening to people who are willing to make the effort. And if not for Miss Shivel, Lord, If not for her, I don't know that I would have done that. And the other part of that story, Patrick, I literally have never put this together until this morning as I was thinking about how I was going to say this. But that conference that I was trying to get all those people to, that the superintendent funded, that was super well attended, that was so well done, that is the conference where I met that teacher that got me into Butler.
Okay, I was literally going to ask about that.
It's the same event. It's the exact same event that happened, right? So for the rest of you guys who are on that story, like the whole reason I was at that exact conference, and I was walking in between sessions with a teacher from West Boca Raton Community High School, and she said, "Hey, where are you going to school?" And I had mentioned that I applied to Butler, and she said, "My son is an admission counselor at Butler. Give me a minute." And she called him on the spot, and I got a ultimately got a scholarship that allowed me to be sitting where I'm sitting right now. So a lot of what I think about in Indianapolis is that I was called here, right? Like there are so many things have happened in my life that have led me here.
Yeah.
So there's something I'm supposed to do here. That's why I'm sticking around. But and I think in some ways I'm doing it now. But I think that it's just all that to say, I'm going back to Miss Shivel because from that experience, I think that there's been so many opportunities for me to impact other people's lives because of being willing to put out what I think about the world or what I think needs to happen, right? Or putting some of those strong feelings into action. I wouldn't say it all comes from her, but I'd say that moment in time was probably the initial like, okay, I'm not just a leader in this school. I'm not just a leader in this building. Like there's an impact that's greater that's out there. So I'm grateful for her for that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Shout out, Miss Shivel.
Shout out,
We're
Miss
going to
Shivel.
find ways to get you flowers from Frida's Flowers, from Madeline, I hope, in Florida, somewhere in Florida, wherever you are, Miss Shivel. We're going to get you something. Shout out to Shivel. You got to get that on a shirt.
Yeah, I mean, just our teachers. Our teachers are so great.
Yeah,
I think that as someone that is a parent of school age kids, I'm even more grateful. I think in Indiana we need to do a better job of taking care of teachers that take care of our children. So there's a huge impact that teachers make. So
100%. Yeah. And I'm sure IndyHub is doing something to help with that. I have no doubt. Al, I can't think of a better way to cap off this conversation than with this incredible shout out. But I have to end with just this one last question that we ask everybody. First off, thank you so much for your time and for sharing so vulnerably and openly. Everything, all the nice things that people have said about you before I've met you, 100% affirmed and confirmed.
Thank you.
300% times over. So last question, how do we find you? How do we follow you? How do we support you in IndyHub after this conversation?
Yeah, I'm Al Carroll on everything. Usually that's at Al, that's Al_Carroll on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find. Al Carroll on everything. 2 R's, 2 L's.
All right. Al Carroll on everything. IndyHub for everything else. Al, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see what y'all have coming up.
Thank you.
Absolutely. For everybody else, new episodes drop every Tuesday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Conversation Peace Pod. Also go to our website, conversationpeacepod.com for merch, for archives, and for everything else. We've got the new branding rolling out. I hope that you like it. Shout out to Madeline Lopez for that. Shout out to my team, John Overton and Popular Rapture on the mics, Mike Lee and Mike Lee Productions on the cameras, and shout out to the artists in the city who are helping make this space look incredible. Last but not least, shout out to Pattern for letting us use this space. We got a lot of incredible conversations coming up, including this one with Al. But until then, I have been Patrick Armstrong, and this has been Conversation Piece. See y'all soon.